Mr. Lee saying we're going on a quick break. But when we come back, I want us to talk about how you got into writing, right? Your journey with authorship and what you think authors may need to help them get into writing. People, we're going on a quick break. Get your snacks, get your drink, and get in front of that TV. Put up your foot, relax yourself. We'll be right back.
So guys, there are some new developments in housing in Tobago. So it's goat racing time. This is 116, the show that keeps you in the know with all things Tobago House of Assembly. Each week, 116 delivers a fun and engaging overview of the latest developments, achievements, activities, and events of our dynamic assembly. So join me. Let's dive into the Tobago House of Assembly's Week in Review right here on 116.
And we're back with Book Club Corner, where every Wednesday we chat with local authors, publishing industry stakeholders about the literary arts, the love of the written word, and about books. And we have with us today Mr. Louis Leasing, and he's going to be talking to us about his 4 books. Mr. Leasing?
4 books.
Yes. So tell me, as a 4-time author, talk to us about how you got into writing. You know, that first book you've written, I correct myself now, it's Conspiracy of the People, or Conspiracy Against the People. That's right.
It's the real title of the book is Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. And
tell me how you got into it.
Well, when I went to City Hall to become the mayor, I sought to locate any material that could guide me as to what was going on prior to my arrival, to facilitate the work programs that I had undertaken and assigned myself, to make life in the city better, and to encourage the council that together we must leave Port of Spain better than we met it. Well, I couldn't find any body of literature. I didn't find any books, anything written by any of the previous mayors. And I said, well, when I leave this place, I would write something documenting it so that the mayors who came after me would be able to pick it up and see precisely what we confronted. And I couldn't write all of it because some of the things, you know, would have brought tears to others. And that's what I did. So at the end of the tour of duty, I wrote Local Government in Trinidad, Conspiracy Against the People. Mm-hmm. And the content had to do with on being chained, talk about what it is, the mayor's prayer, the 41st Council of Port of Spain, the debate and discussions, the Port of Spain, I inherited the chief executive officer, police inspector, city engineer, and the dog catcher, public health in Port of Spain, and the list goes on, which gave an indication of what I met, certainly what I left, but it gave an appreciation to the uninitiated what that 39 months for me was all about. And so that was that book.
Do
And then
you see this book, Conspiracy Against the People? Do you look at it like a manual? Perhaps all mayors should get this book. Somebody who is going into office. Is this something that would ease them into the position better, give them information and insight?
Well, I think if the people at UWI are serious about teaching local government, or what other ever institutions are doing that, they should seek to treat with that book and its material, because in a sense, it gives the kind of perspective on local government that you could find nowhere else. And if I say to you, there is a kind of feeling in our society that that book has been out, it has been selling, but none of the educational institutions where local government has been taught has ever called me to say, Mr. Leeson, come and defend your book. Which is what happens in matured and serious societies. A text like that, the university would have gotten in touch with you and said, we want to discuss your book. Could you come and make yourself available to do a presentation on the book and to defend it? That is not happening.
Yeah, and I'm hearing from you that you're very invested in making sure that those who come after understand what the role is about and are able to function well. So I think you would be a perfect person to incorporate into some kind of civics training, right? Local government civics training, what's happening on the local level, because most of what we know or hear about is on the parliamentary level, but there's so much happening in terms of local governments, even for each borough, each community, each city. And I think that is something that we really, really should be paying attention to. You know, everybody wants to get into the parliament to represent an area, but what about the local government level? And, you know, just
the truth told, the councillor is the one who interacts with the burgesses or the constituents in a far greater numbers in terms of dates and times than the MP would ever do. But yet the MP seeks to lord over the councillors as if he or she were the bosses to the councillors. It's all of these arguments that when I had saw it, I remember I had to deal with the MP for Port of Spain South, and you know, monies were approved for independence celebrations. And she called me demanding, I have to get some of that money. I said, no, you're not getting a cent. You can't. I said, the monies have been assigned to district councillors, and they are not even getting the money in hand for the transparency and protection. They will get their bills and invoices and bring them to us. And on the basis of that, we would award the payments to the various suppliers. Because my own feeling about transparency is something that I am not playing games with, because ultimately, when you steal from the unborn, you reduce your society to one that is Haiti. And I often wonder, you know, like there was a missing community center. All the payments were made to that particular minister. The community center was never built, and in one of the most difficult neighborhoods in Trinidad. I've often argued that if the community center had been built, we may well today have less gangsters, less bad boys, and we might have a few more electricians, plumbers, computer techs, and the list goes on and on.
I
So
have
there's
to
been two.
say, I have to say that I think you're right. I think you're onto something there. You know, sending out condolences in advance of me speaking on it to the family and friends of the councillor who lost her life, and MP, the Honorable Lisa Morris Julian. And she passed away at the beginning of December. Was it the end of December? I think it was. But she passed away, and I think a lot of persons had some really good things to say about her in terms of what she was doing. This is for Arima, and you're talking about Port of Spain. You know, as we are in Scarborough, we are looking at the fact that I think what you're talking about is something very important in terms of making sure that our communities can come together in a space. You know, when we look at community centers, when we look at community activities, when we look at spaces that, green spaces that are for social gathering, and, you know, are we really putting the effort into it that we should in terms of what we're doing for the communities? And what I'm hearing from you is that this is something that was important to you, and you put it in the book. When we talk about tour of duty, as you mentioned, right? Is there something you want to share about perhaps the Prime Minister's coming close to what he is now saying, his tour of duty? You being a person who was in politics yourself and has written this book, Conspiracy Against the People, you know, what do you think? What's your opinion on his demitting office before time and perhaps this tour of duty that you mentioned?
Well, I think one ought not to judge Dr. Rowley on his decision to move on. He is advancing in years, and he probably believes that now is a good time to do nothing in a structured way, that he would really like to spend time holding his dear wife Sharon's hand, dancing on a dancing floor, spending more time on the golf club, at the golf clubs of the world, and he has the resources now to do that. And he just did it. Now, as to whether the government should be taking, parliamentarians should be taking a pay increase at a time when the public servants are being told, I'm giving you 4%, but we take it 49%. That is not acceptable to me. But I don't want anybody to believe I'm a prude, but I simply believe in justice. And if the people down below could only get 4%, and you really need to get an increase, don't go as high as 40%. If you want to take a 20%, take a 20%. Because a 20% is still a leap.
Yes.
But you asked about Dr. Rowley, and I think we should not grudge him his decision to move on. I think he feels at this time he's had a long time in that parliament. And believe you me, the responsibilities and the discipline associated with preparation and participation in the parliament is not an easy assignment. And maybe that is why so many people fail at it, because it requires stick-to-itiveness, an understanding of the law, an understanding of parliamentary rules. And my feeling is that nobody's really teaching that to the people who are coming in. And I certainly can say without fear of contradiction that there was a time the PNM had party school and had preparation committees for this kind of thing. But that seemed to be long gone now, and so people are going in there and have to work their butts off. And so we need to recognize it is not an easy assignment, and the people should be compensated just as anybody else is being compensated when they work at Tia Tech, TST, the magistracy, wherever. The parliamentarians are in fact underpaid and often overworked.
And I will add local government as well.
Well, the local government is another scandal.
Oh,
In
dear.
fact, I think local government should be given, I think they should be given the same increase like Dr. Rao.
Well, this is Mr. Lee saying, would you be willing to start a civic school? Would you be willing to start some kind of, sign me up for a class in civics with Mr. Louis Lee Singh, as a webinar session and a few courses? Is that something that you're looking to head into?
No. No.
Why? I think you would be perfect. I'm just putting it out there.
I have no doubt I would make a good contribution. But at this time, I feel like Dr. Rowley, I hope my knees heal better soon, and that I could return to the golf course. I haven't been there for about a month or two, 3. I want to go back out and take a swing. Normally, I would have been playing football. I played football until my 67th year. And but it affected my knees.
Yes.
I stopped football 15 years earlier. I would perhaps have now a very good golf swing and both knees functioning.
Well, listen, when we talk about, this book of yours, it's Conspiracy Against the People, about, this tour of duty in terms of your time in office, I can't help but think about the conversations that younger persons have about older persons not wanting to let go and, hand over what you learn, train the younger generation coming up, make sure they're tooled up, and to graciously and gracefully, head to greener pastures where, you can relax and enjoy life a bit more. And I would say that if anything is to be learned from this early resignation, because he's demitting office, that's what he's saying, he's demitting office early, is that, when the time comes, you should be comfortable and happy to move on to something as age progresses, and let perhaps the younger generation who you have trained, we don't want the information to be lost. We want the information to be shared like you've shared in your book, Conspiracy Against the People. Do you think Dr. Rowley is thinking of writing another book, because he already has a memoir, I think it is?
I couldn't say. Dr. Rowley is a person I really can't speak for at all. I've not had a conversation with him, I would say, since 2012. Yeah.
Well, I would think it's a perfect thing to do.
Hearts have not crossed even to say hello.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm putting it out there, Dr. Rowley. If you watch Book Club Corner, I'm putting it out there. We're looking for your second book to be coming out during your retirement years, and we would love to chat with you about your first book. Mr. Lee Singh, we're going on a quick break, and when we come back, we are heading into your other books, right? I Used to Live in Heaven, as well as Closer to the Church, and your final book so far, right? Between the Bank and the Gutter, Exploring Homelessness. We're going to be back in a few minutes. We have some really important things to discuss with you as we chat with Mr. Lee Singh about his books.
rotisserie, mouth-watering fries, salads, combos, and specials galore. Feeling for something to eat? Come and see. Our rotisserie is seasoned to the T. Kicking chicken, masala, and jerk roast. Crispy fries made from scratch. Who do you know can beat that? Or salads freshly cut and packed. When you taste it, you'll be wanting to come back. So come check us out on number 2 Robinson Street, Uptown Scarborough, Tobago. We open on Saturday nights from 7:30 to 11:30 p.m. Monday to Thursday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. And on Friday, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Contact us at 772-7443 and all social media handles at The Rotisserie Factory.
And we're back with the Book Club Corner this morning, a beautiful Wednesday morning in Scarborough, Tobago, and we're chatting with local author Mr. Louis Leasing about his 4 books. Mr. Leasing?
Yeah.
Listen, the first part of this conversation with you about this book, Conspiracy About the People, I had to stop because there was so much to talk about and pull out. But I want to get into this other book you have, I Used to Live in Heaven. I felt, when I saw the cover, I felt like it was really a personal, very soft, very intimate, very quiet. Tell us about your inspiration for this book and about how this book is doing.
Well, I think it's still selling, not as much as it should be. I Used to Live in Heaven. The really title of the book is I Used to Live in Heaven, Letters to My Granddaughters. As you know, I have 5 granddaughters. And to me, that is perhaps where the world is, what they're doing and their comforts and their happiness and their future is of paramount importance to me. Mm-hmm. And I chose to do this book so that they would understand when they come into womanhood what Trinidad was like, the mistakes Trinidad made. You know, like people believe the murder thing is a new thing. The murder thing has been with us for a long time. And to tell some of my own personal experiences as a public servant, what are the errors that we made as a society. So I talked about squandered inheritances, and I drew references that are real. I talked about people. There is a particular chapter in this book called Tale of Two Thieves, in which I juxtaposed my father catching a thief, and having captured the thief, who was stealing from a hut store 2 apartments up the street. He handed over the thief to the police. The police charged the man, took him to court, and the man went to prison. Now, that was then. So you skip and you advance the clock to my time now. And I was chairman of the NLC, and we recognized that something was amiss. $37 million or so had been misappropriated. We followed the money, we found the money. I brought in Robert Lindquist there. They recognized the forensic accountant. And when the report was presented to the chairman of the Integrity Commission, and it was presented to the then TPP, who is now a judge, Mr. Henderson. Nothing ever happened.
Wow.
Let me say to you, so to make the point clear, I wrote, and Mr. Henderson replied as follows. And this is dated September 23rd, 2008. Mr. Louis Lee Singh, Chairman of NLCB. Dear Mr. Singh, NLCB conduct of former board members of NLCB. Reference is made to your correspondence dated December 14, 2007. I wish to also acknowledge receipt of the memorandum of findings submitted relative to the affairs of the National Lotteries Control Board. I have reviewed what can only be described as a disturbing report. Ex facie, the memorandum of findings merits the conduct of a full criminal investigation into the affairs of the then management of National Lotteries Control Board, GTEC, Flex Avita, and Platinum Resources Limited. In the above-mentioned circumstances, I have submitted a copy of the Memorandum of Findings to the Assistant Commissioner of Police, Anti-Corruption Investigation Bureau for further investigations. Yours sincerely, Jeffrey K. Henderson, Director of Public Prosecutions. Now, that I put this in the, I printed the letter in the appendix so that people can see for themselves what was written at Taylor 2 T's. And I'm saying to you, what is clear to me is that things have not gotten better, they've gotten worse. And we therefore have to find ways and means to treat with the things that now confront us.
How do you feel, or what's your idea about how your granddaughters, we always talk about girl dads, right? But we never talk about girl granddads. How, as a grandfather to these girls, are you looking at society and what we're leaving for the next generation? You know, are we leaving a space that they can feel happy about, comfortable in, and feel like there is the rule of law? You know, as you say, the tale of two thieves. Is this a space where persons are justly punished? There is restitution, there is justice happening in our space in Trinidad and Tobago?
Trinidad is not that society. That is the society that we may have started off pursuing. But along the way, those that led us were not prepared to take the hard decisions that would have discouraged everybody from engaging in kleptomania behavior. I'm afraid, and in this book, I give you all of that, you know. Like when I talk about the squandered inheritances, you know, you understand what it is all about. But I want to say to you, in this book, it is not just the hard things like Taylor 2 T's, you know, because I've spent some time telling my granddaughters. Well, interestingly, I've tried to explain to them why I split with the PNM. Because the PNM in our family was a big thing, you know. And but also I talked about telling the girls that they demand that you be treated royally. Whoever comes into your life, make sure they recognize that they are coming into your space, and so on and so forth. And it is the kind of thing that is not only for my granddaughters, but I guess it's for grandchildren, wherever you can find them. Because I would also, if I had grandsons, I would also tell them, demand that you be treated royal. Don't get into a relationship with a woman to be a slave, but understand that what relationships ought to be about and things like that.
I love that. You know, as as a daddy's girl, as I was, you know, I think this book that you have, I Used to Live in Heaven, which is, you know, your legacy to your granddaughters. I think it's such a needed piece of literature in terms of a legacy, in terms of something that your grandchildren can read and, you know, pass on to their children and their children's children. And I think all families, all parents and grandparents kind of do that in a way, but I like that you have an actual book. You know, it's something special between dads and their daughters, granddads and their daughters. I, for one, you know, from my father, he loved an engine. He would take down an engine, and from the time I see him put on those coveralls and his broad belt and head outside, well, I was outside too, right? I want to be the help. I handed him all the wrench and looking for all his tools. And, you know, it's such a sweet thing. I think men should make sure that they stay in the lives of their children, whether they're boys or girls, stay in the lives of their children, even granddads and uncles. Men are needed in the lives of their children. And I would just caution anybody to please step out of the way. Don't obstruct them. Let that be their choice. But don't obstruct the men from being there for their children, their grandchildren, their nieces, their nephews. Allow the men to be bonded and to take care and to put the work in. And men, please step into those roles fearlessly like Mr. Lee Singh is doing and really do the work, right? The society will be better for it. Are you seeing any of your granddaughters stepping into your shoes, Mr. Lee Singh, as a media executive or even into politics? Are they interested in what, you know, in some of the shoes that you have?
I hope they stay away from politics. And I hope
understand.
they have intelligence to pursue careers and to do them well. And it's an ongoing debate I have with my second granddaughter. I keep somebody put in her head that she should be a pilot. And she continues to insist on that, and I continue to say to her, that will not bring you a life of longevity and joy. It is too unstable a profession, quite frankly. And I, who had spent 10 years in the airline business, understand that well.
Well, let me tell you, if her heart is set on the, you know, on these clouds and in the sky, I mean, Mr. Lee Singh, there's nothing you can do, because I know myself, when I am, you know, my head is set in a certain gear. I wanted to write books, and I remember telling my mother, you know, I think I want to be an author, I want to write books, and she went silent. That was her way of saying, I don't think so. But, you know, look where I am here today. You know, sometimes your heart is just where it is, Mr. Lee Singh, and I know you want to protect her, and, you know, that's worthwhile as well.
And I say to you that while that may be so,
yeah,
I have a responsibility. You know the thing about older and wiser?
Yeah, yeah.
And every argument you can advance why you should be a pilot, I will advance 10 arguments why you ought not to be a pilot.
I love it. Wisdom of the ages we're having here today, people. And you're hearing straight from Mr. Lee Singh, letters to my granddaughters, I used to live in heaven. Mr. Lee Singh, we're going on a quick break, but when we come back, we're heading into some deep waters, exploring homelessness in Trinidad and Tobago. that space where a lot of persons don't want to look. We pass a lot of homeless people on the streets and we pretend we don't see them, right? And we're going to be getting into that and talking about your book, Between the Bank and the Gutter. We're going on a quick break, ladies and gentlemen, viewers, wherever you may be. Get your snacks, get your drinks. I know you eat all the snacks already, right? I know you drink out all your drink. Go and get it and come right back to us here on Book Club Corner. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, across the Caribbean, wherever you may be viewing from. Dominica, Curacao, Trinidad and Tobago, and of course from the Tobago Updates Facebook page or from the website or on YouTube, where we will be uploading this author interview that we're having with author Mr. Louis Leasing. So wherever you may be viewing from, we want to thank you for being here with us again on Book Club Corner. Mr. Leasing, we were talking about getting into this book. You have a book launch coming up next week. And tell us about this launch. Tell us about this book.
Well, the launch, and I hope people put it in their minds, because the public is invited. The launch will be held at the Little Carib Theatre, the corner of Roberts and White Streets in Port of Spain. It will be at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, the 21st of January, 2025. We are in the new year. We are in the fantastic 25. And so the launch will be on Tuesday, the 21st of January, 2025 at 5 p.m. at the Little Carib Theatre, and the public is invited. Let me say to you, I'm launching this book that you're seeing there. And the idea is, this is the book that we're launching. Let me get it, see if I get it right. All right, I think I got it there.
Yes, we have it.
Right. And so this book, what is this book all about? One of the things, it will also be an opportunity where people will see part of an exhibition of my photography of street dwellers. As mayor, I had to catalog what I saw, what I met, and what I hope to correct. And as you know, I set about correcting that in more ways than one. I had 3 or 4 street dwelling exercises, which not only served to establish the law, but it also explained to us, because we collected data at that time, who exactly was on the street: drug addicts, mentally ill people, deportees, people who had fallen through the cracks, people just out of prison, and the list went on and on. And when you look at this exhibition and you read my book on the matter, you will begin to ask questions. What does this picture say to you? And what does the picture say to me? And so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond the Bank and the Gutter is really an interesting novel of the street dwellers in Port of Spain. And I would want to read, I will begin with the end in mind, and I'm trying to communicate to your viewers precisely where we are with this matter. Chapter 1. I will probably read a couple pages, not much. Harry was the lone Indian on the block. He had joined the block at the corner of Broadway and Independence Square South 11 years earlier. He became a street dweller during the good times of the Trinidad economy. In those days, Even the street dwellers had money, and some flaunted their wealth on items that brought them more grief. Harry was not one of them. He did not spend what he never had. He found his home on the streets when forced from his family home due to illness. He spent the first night on the cold, dirt-filled, semi-damp and cruel pavement, 107 meters from the corner, where pedestrians caught their taxis for various destinations, and where passengers alighted from taxis coming from east, west, north, and south Trinidad. They came by the hundreds, and Harry saw them all. Over the 11 years, he grew to know their faces. He knew where they worked, as he had become familiar with each peculiar uniform and the business place to which it belonged. He remembered each color, and he remembered the faces which carried the color, and above all, he remembered the scarcity of smiles. These days, he noted that just as the money had dried up in the city and country, so had the people's smiles disappeared. He had become used to being invisible and unseen by the thousands of eyes who looked at him, but never saw him. He was conscious of how rancid he smelt, and he marveled at the thousands of nostrils that passed him, but never seemed to have never smelled the terrifying odor his person distributed, which he knew could be smelt and felt a mile away. Harry had grown to enjoy this power of being invisible, as over the years, his sharp eyes often caught sight of someone he knew well from the better days, and though the person knew him up close and personal, the person never saw him as the person, like so many, could not see a ghost. Never saw him as a real man, a real person, who through no fault of his own, now found themselves on the streets of Port of Spain, eating out of the garbage street dustbins and the drains of his city, the same city that so many boasted of being the jewel city. Harry was one of 400 plus street dwellers who roamed the streets of Port of Spain. After his years on the streets, he prided himself as being one of the senior owners of the pavements. He called the pavements footpaths, and he took ownership of that small area of the footpath on Broadway West under the awnings of the Canadian Bank. He ensured that no one, regardless of size or demeanor, or any of the armor he and his band of street dwellers carried on their persons for self-defense against each other or the more heinous two-legged kind who roamed the streets of the city both day and night, but more so at night, preying on anyone they perceived to be weaker than themselves. He saw to it that no one took advantage of the man Harry. Harry carried his worldly possessions inside a used onion bag. The bag was of a loose fit, and no doubt was constructed to keep the onions from spoiling during their long voyages to the Republic. He got the bag after having convinced a sister at the Roman Catholic shelter that he needed a bag to carry his things, as he described a used t-shirt and three-quarter pair of pants, along with a hairbrush he had last used so long ago he could not remember. Among the contents of his bag were a pair of socks with a hole on the left big toe and an equally large hole on the heel of the other side of the pair of socks. Inside the onion bag, Harry also carried 2 loaves of hops bread. Both loaves showed strong signs of decay, with mold covering as much as 1/4 of each bread, which appeared clammy, having been placed in a plastic bag before being stuffed between his meager possessions of clothing. Harry also had another plastic bag inside his bag, in which he carried what he often described as his vitals. Despite being mentally imbalanced, he knew enough to ensure that he had basic medications in his plastic bag of meds. He carried a packet of aspirin, Tylenol, as well as a worn tube of antibiotic ointment, which was squeezed and rolled from the bottom. Harry also stuffed in his bag an overworn pair of sneakers, which looked as black as the soles of his feet and smelt as if it carried decayed human flesh. On his feet, he wore an equally worn pair of flip-flops, which were just as poor shape as the oversized sneakers. He guarded with the sharp knife he carried wrapped in a sheet of cardboard, plus a combination of electric and scotch tapes. He kept this weapon in the waist of his pants, and his neighbors on Upper Broadway knew he was not to be tested. During the early days of this spot, Harry was challenged by another street dweller who attempted to take away his plastic bag, in which he also kept a folded piece of leatherette fabric that was used as his mattress. When the attacker sought to deprive Harry of his most prized possession, he drew his blade and left the invader with only his right ear fully attached to his face. The attacker bolted, screaming, "Murder, murder, murder, murder." When he was finally attended to at the local health clinic, he presented his left ear in his left hand with it clinging by a thread to where it had once been fully attached. So that is part of the opening chapter of the book. So it gives you a clear appreciation of the main protagonist in the book, Harry.
Mr. Lee Singh, I love how you have a style of writing that for me is very unique. Most of the times when we read literature about homeless persons or about persons who may be having issues, it's usually from, how we're looking at them, how we're looking at the situation. But from your story, Harry, the homeless person, is looking at the housed, as they call it, right? The unhoused versus the housed. He's looking at the fact that they smile less. He's looking at the fact that, the money, as the economy is going down, so are their smiles. And he's looking at how they're operating and how they're moving about the city. And I think that's such a unique perspective in terms of how the homeless are seeing us, how the persons who are living on the streets, as you say, the street dwellers, how they see, the persons commuting and walking up and down in Scarborough, Port of Spain, whatever other city it may be. Why did you write it from that perspective in terms of how Harry saw the person, as an unhoused person, how he is seeing the persons traversing the city, going to work, coming from work, they in their smart uniforms, going about the place. How did you decide you wanted to write it from that perspective?
It is not just that. I sought to tell a story that nobody has an interest in. And I tell you, when I got to City Hall, I recognized that my predecessors had even less interest in the street dweller. I didn't just want to move street dwellers off the streets, but I wanted to ensure that corrective action would be taken to address the needs, wants, and benefits that should accrue to street dwellers. When you have a street dweller who's a drug addict, and the city brings him before the courts for loitering on 4 occasions, the magistrate must be empowered by law to ask for a tracing, ask for a background file on this man, and on that 4th occasion, she should have the power to put that man in a compulsory drug rehabilitation program. That is not now available.
Well, Mr. Lee Singh, I'm seeing that you've personalized, and I really like that. You've personalized the homeless or the unhoused, right? The street dwellers. You've personalized them. You've given them personhood, and living on the streets, from what I'm seeing, tends to rob persons of that.
But more than that, what I want to say to you.
You're viewing Tobago Updates Television, your exclusive gateway to Tobago, broadcasting the beauty of this island paradise to the world.
Put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning.